is what Dr. Boni Halwale is doing on this show right now. Because those matters are actively in court, the ones he's prosecuting. And since Dr. Halwale seems to know so much about it, I'm sure he would be quite useful to, the former governor of Kiambu, except to point out very clearly that it is not sub judice for a county assembly to consider an impeachment of a governor merely because that governor is facing criminal charges in court. That by itself is not. Because the sub judice rule is very, very specific, both in terms of what you can talk about when it's in court or even when it's in parliament. As long as the grounds you are considering are grounds known to law, known to the Constitution, and which can be demonstrated, that is a different fact. But beyond that, I think it is fair, as Senator Matangi says, to let the court prosecute the merits of the Kiambu governor's case.
So, just a moment. No. Let's say from Aaron Cheruiyot will come.
To cough.
To cough?
Yes.
Just cough.
He laughed instead, so his chances.
Anyway. You would have to be a fool to be guided by the sub judice rule for 15 years in Parliament the way I was and not understand it. And even if you do not know and not inquire or read around it, I understand sub judice very well. In fact, maybe practically better than my brother, who is a junior colleague in parliamentary practice. Sub judice, my brother, is very clear. Nobody stops you on discussing on an issue which is before another judge in parliament. But it insists very clearly that so long as that discussion does not touch on the merits
and the
demerits of that matter before the judge, the moment you carry out a substantive motion in the county assembly or in parliament,
all right, thank you.
That is...
All right, thank you. Thank you for the legal lesson.
So, no, all right,
thank you. Will never cease. That now Dr. Halwale is teaching me the law.
Yes.
Because
no, I'm teaching you parliamentary practice.
I'll take you. This is not about parliamentary. This is about the law.
I'm teaching you parliamentary practice, and you better accept.
All right.
Thank
you. I think no.
Seriously,
thank you,
yes.
Dr.
You don't know that you don't.
Okay, thank you. We're not delving into sub judice rule right now, the merits and the demerits of the cases. But you raise, I think Senator Cheruiyot should clarify this. You think what he's actually saying, it cannot just go, unanswered, that it was pure choreography what really happened in Kiambu. Yeah, I think that will be reductive of the Senate and what really happened also with the MCAs. It's reductive of Boni Halwale to say.
It's not a matter that I want to get into deep detail of. There are many things that I do not agree with in how the process was carried out. But then again, as a leader in the House, I think it will be unbecoming of my conduct to try and disparage a House in which I am a leader. Therefore, allow me to pass this discussion.
But my question is very pointed, the question of choreography. Should we just also have such a word, floating?
I have said as much without saying so much, Dibal.
Okay.
And we know
Dr. Eseli, let's wind up on it. We gravitate to other issue.
Even if it's choreography or any name you want to call it, I think the fight against corruption should be an endeavor by all of us. And I think I would go further to say that where Kenya has reached with corruption, I don't think I would wince at breaking a few laws to actually stop this corruption. Because if indeed we want to take, because the corrupt are very good. They actually control the system. So in order to get to them, you might have to break some laws. If we really are keen on fighting corruption in this country, I think we must accept we might have to take some shortcuts to get it done. I think the end justifies the means.
I am sure. Dibal, yes. I am sure on that one, even Otiende will not agree with that kind of thinking, because that's a very dangerous. There's nothing like fighting corruption corruptly. That is corruption in itself as well. Let us stick to the rule of the law.
All right. On any day. Enough law with which we can fight corruption without breaking the law.
Yeah.
What we shouldn't do is do what Dr. Boni Halwale is trying to do now. That every time there's a path taken on someone, whether it's in court or is through other processes, then you go back to saying it is taken because that person has associated with so-and-so. That is what we shouldn't do. We should fight corruption on its merit, on its own, without breaking the law, but we also without casting aspersions, without grounds.
Right, thank you. All right.
But you know,
Now,
without breaking the law, that's why these cases are stuck in court. They never seem to get finished.
thank you. Thank you. Let's leave it at that. Deputy President William Ruto has accused organizers of the Building Bridges Initiative rallies of perpetuating ethnic divisions in the country. DP Ruto and his allies warned that such utterances would further divide the country, which goes against the BBI spirit. Ruto was speaking last Sunday at the Full Gospel Katunduri Church in Embu County, and he was accompanied by some leaders from the Mount Kenya region. Let's listen in.
Kila Mkenya ako na haki aishi, afanye biashara, aombe uongozi katika kila sehemu ya Kenya bila ya kushurutishwa na bila ya kuomba ruhusa mtu yeyote. This story we are being told about nobody can stop reggae. If the reggae is what we are seeing, the ethnicity that is being preached in BBI rallies, and the ethnic profiling of communities, and the hate and the campaign one community against another, if that is the reggae they are talking about, my friends, reggae will stop.
Reggae will stop. You can see also a very interesting editorial cartoon in the Star today by Ozon there. Boom, 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 boom. And you can see, of course, the guitarist and the vocalist there is none other. I'll leave it for you to decipher that. And that's the music which is going, nobody can stop reggae. But one man is trying to pull the plug, right? Let's get reactions from our panelists on that editorial cartoon and the statement also from the Deputy President. Cheruiyot?
You should start with Otiende. He's the DJ.
Is the DJ?
I mean, I'm trying to unplug it, so start with the DJ first.
Aaron, Aaron, since when did you become the moderator? Go on, we want to hear your
Aaron,
views.
it's you. Let's begin with you.
You know, I've never been shy to express my views. Only that I find myself to be in a very difficult situation. One is because I'm a very big fan of reggae music. But now it has been abused by people who know nothing about reggae, the Otiendes of this one.
But you said it's a DJ.
Yeah. Anyway, that was with a light touch. I think I agree, and the Deputy President is spot on this. The fact that there are people who want to use this avenue of the BBI to say certain unpalatable things about each other. For example, this issue about Narok left a bad taste in BBI, and I don't know. I saw Otiende there, though he didn't speak along the lines of many of the likes of Atuoli and Malala. He was very guarded in his comments and the kind of things that he said. But when we went to, for example, the first rally in Kisii, the Kurias, the Luos and the Kisis who live within that region were invited, and they gave their proposals. For example, the Kurias who feel marginalized in Migori County gave their proposals that they think time has come for them to have a county of their own within Migori, because they felt they are not assured of services to themselves. Then we went to Mombasa, and we had all communities living in that particular region. You have Kambas, Mijikendas, the Digos. They came, they went to Wild Waters, and they gave their presentations about what they think with the BBI. And that was in good spirit, and that was supported up to that extent. Where things began to go wrong is in the preparation for the Narok meeting. First, there was a meeting in Kajiado where MCAs who are from minority communities and non-dominant Ma communities were asked to step out of the meeting. And they went ahead and protested. They issued a press conference and said this is now becoming divisive. And they were really concerned that none other than former Prime Minister Raila Odinga chaired the meeting. And given the kind of stature that he wants to give in the country, he should have been the one re-engineering back the conversation and telling the Ledamas of this world that this is not what you are trying to do. We are not trying to say that in pursuit of what you consider to be justice to you, you trample on the rights of others. And that is what we expected former Prime Minister to have done on that particular incident. But unfortunately, he sat there, listened to the Ledamas of this world, kick out the MPs and MCAs from that region who are not mass speaking. Then now things go to a crescendo on Friday before the rally on Saturday. When they went to Narok, there are people who began uttering actually hate speech and threatened to beat up certain elected leaders. There was a particular MCA from a ward called Lulunga in Narok, which is a predominantly occupied ward, but elections are what they are. And it ended up that the person who was elected as MCA comes from the Kipsigis community. And when one of the speakers was speaking, they threatened and told him, in fact, you need to resign. We do not know how you were elected. And you know, in these meetings, people can get charged. And therefore, when they sort of threatened him, he had to walk out, and they walked out together with the rest of the leaders. I expected that when Prime Minister Raila Odinga takes to the stage on Saturday, he will remind our friends from the Ma community that, yes, they are justified in their pursuit for what they consider to be land and historical injustices that have been meted out in the community. But you cannot seek to cure marginalization by marginalizing others, by trying to kick out people who rightfully own land, by trying even to push a very weak narrative on leadership. For example, the party that I come from, if you go to Wendani right now, and it's unfortunate that we've lost him at a time when I think we needed him the most, the late MCA, known as Gearbox, come from the Luo community, but because he have lived in Thika and assimilated, he was elected on a Jubilee Party ticket, and he continues to serve. You saw how residents of his ward actually were weeping upon his loss. If you go to Meru, where BBI is going to this Sunday, you'll find a Kenyan of Indian extraction serving his second term in parliament, representing a constituency that is predominantly Meru. And there are many examples. If you go even to the county assembly, for example, of Kericho, you'll find there are people of Somali origin who sit in that county assembly. That is the beautiful mosaic that is otherwise known as Kenya. But if we begin preaching the kind of divisive message that was being preached and reducing BBI forums, I have never known the strategic value of someone like Francis Atwoli in these BBI rallies. He's a nuisance to the conversation because you're speaking a breath air of inclusivity. I would expect that when he gets the podium, he will address the country on what is it that we can do, for example, so that we stop losing job opportunities to Ethiopia. But for every 5 minutes that he gets, it's about character assassination of, if it is not leaders from Western Kenya who don't agree with him, then it is the deputy president and everybody. That, I think, there's a need to re-engineer the conversation around BBI to be about the 9-point agenda that was intended. And I think that is what we've been